Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome John the Music Nut to the channel. Tonight we are doing a career retrospective on the band Deee-Lite. Not many people are talking about Deee-Lite, but John and I are going to, so without any further ado, let's get this started.
Throw those horns up. It's time for Grant's Rock Warehouse.
Welcome to Grant's Rock Warehouse, and tonight I want to welcome John the Music Nut to the show. This is a topic that John came up with, and it just so happened that I already had these CDs and I was familiar with these records. You never thought we would talk about this on this channel, but we like to talk about things people don't talk about.
That's right.
That's right. So John is here, and we're going to talk about the house dance music group Deee-Lite. Now, if you remember back in 1990, if you're old enough, they had a single called Groove is in the Heart, which was big. It was everywhere. It was, gosh, I'm not sure. John, do you know what that charted? It's had to be close to number one, I would imagine.
It was definitely top 10. I know that. Maybe it was. Yeah, I have top 10 here. I remember clear as day. But oh gosh, it got
okay. Here we go. U.S. number 4, UK number 2, Australia was at number 1, Germany 17. The single went platinum here in the States. So big single. This is their claim to fame. But a lot of people probably don't know this. They put out the one record in 1990, World Click. They actually put out 2 more records. Now, these other records didn't fare as well as the first record, but we're going to talk about those records today and World Click because I think they all need to be recognized once again. And definitely John thinks that. Debut World Click came out in 1990, went top 10 in there it is. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Billboard ranked this record as the 55th most successful dance artist of all time. And the thing about this, it was basically formed by 2 people, Lady Miss Kerr and Supra DJ Dimitri. Yeah, say that really fast. Say them both together really fast. So Super DJ Dimitri was born in Ukraine, but they got together like in 1988 and they started this project. So they basically played numerous New York nightclubs in that era. They did a lot of sampling. Think about it, kids. The late 80s. You know what all that sounds like. Mm-hmm. But I must say, by 1990, when they got signed to, I think they got signed to Elektra, right?
Elektra, yes.
I'll tell you, things had come along quite a bit by then because I listened to that debut record now, John, and it really sounds fresh. To me, it doesn't sound dated.
Mm-mm.
But let me turn it over to you and get your thoughts on what you think of that first record.
Well, I bought this record back in the 90s. I bought this from BMG Music Service. I'm trying to think. Maybe I bought it in 94, 95, but I knew Groove is in the Heart because it got played to death. I knew Good Beat. I knew the title track. They were on Saturday Night Live in either 1990 or 91, and they did Groove is in the Heart and Click, and they kicked it. But when I bought this album, I had to have the other 2. I think by late 96, I had all 3 albums. World Click, though, World Click is a killer record.
Before you go on, let me ask you this real quick. I don't mean to interrupt, but I find this all fascinating.
No, it's all great.
Because I was aware of when this came out, but I looked at it and went,
okay.
Not really my cup of tea. What was it about this when you first heard it that turned you on and made you take a second look or maybe go, golly, This isn't all that bad. I'm just curious.
I was into a lot of music back then that was similar.
Okay.
I was really into funk. And Bootsy
Okay.
Collins was on this, and I loved Bootsy. I have a best of Bootsy Collins CD. I was getting into Parliament and Funkadelic at that time. I liked a lot of. I mean, there is some rap on here. You got Q-Tip on here. I love Tribe Called
It's not too bad though. It's not that. I mean, it's
No, it's great. Like
right.
like Tribe Called Quest. We could talk about them another day.
Right.
I could talk about them song and verse. But anyway, I mean, I was into this kind of music. I wasn't necessarily buying a lot of it, but I really enjoyed it. And I liked some other acts that were similar at this time. Like I liked Black Box.
Mm-hmm.
I liked London Beat. They had a big hit. I've been thinking about you. Went to
London Beat.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I haven't heard that forever.
Yeah, that's
London Beat.
I have the cassette. I have the cassette here still.
Of course you do.
Yeah, I do.
Anyway, go ahead. I find this
you.
all fascinating. I love
Yeah,
that.
it's all good. Thanks. I mean, but I mean, I was into funk. I was getting into some of Prince's albums at that point. I was digging into Rick James's stuff. So I was
brilliant.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, and at that right around this time, I took up the bass guitar too.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned how to play bass by listening to songs like this and listening to disco. Even though I never played in a disco band, I played in a classic rock band. So, but I picked it up because the bass lines in that kind of music were so prominent, and they were so easy to pick up by ear, and they were so cool. I mean, you could play those bass lines, and people be like, "I know that. What is that?" You know, whereas some other bands you just play in straight quarter notes. So the bass was always carrying the song. So I always had an affection for this kind of music, particularly in the 1990s. And I really dug Deee-Lite. And the bass line on Groove Is in the Heart, which is their biggest hit, and I didn't know this until recently, is off the song Bring Down the Birds by Herbie Hancock. And you know what's weird? It was from the Get Up soundtrack. That's the only 60s album I don't have by him. So I never heard it. And I was like, I always wondered where they picked that up from. And then doing some little bit of research. I mean, you'd think I would have known it all these years ago, but I didn't.
Well, I mean, was that like a sample or did they
sampled
it? They sampled it.
Yeah, they sampled it. In fact, I think this was before they really put a crackdown on the sampling.
Well, you know what? This is going to be on a sidetrack, but
yeah,
just to go on a tangent, think about this. One of the most groundbreaking records.
I know where you're going.
Beastie Boys, Paul's Boutique.
Love it to death.
They just did that. They didn't check with anybody as far as getting clearance. They just did it. And then things later got cracked. Well, everything cracked down. What I understood by talking, I don't know if I read an article somewhere or what, but I think this is all fascinating. And this is all related to this.
Yes.
They could never reproduce that record nowadays.
No, they couldn't.
You couldn't do it. It would cost you an arm and a leg. And I'm just saying, since we're talking Deee-Lite,
yes,
if anybody's even interested in Deee-Lite and what we're talking about today, please check out Paul's Boutique by the Beastie Boys. It's groundbreaking. You will never, ever have another album like this. Ever. You won't.
I mean, and the next two, I know we're supposed to be talking about Deee-Lite, but the next two Beastie Boys albums did sample, but it was a lot less. Whereas
because Paul's Boutique is like full tilt.
It's like hundreds of samples on there.
It would you couldn't do it now. There would be lawsuits left and right. But but still, I think what year did Paul's Boutique come out? Was that
89?
89. Okay, think about this, everybody. We've got the first Deee-Lite album in 1990.
Yes.
I'm throwing this out there. I could be talking out my ass, but I don't think you would have this. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Paul's Boutique changed a lot of the music industry. I know that album at the time kind of was considered a failure to some degree, but I think it had a lot of influence within the music industry. And I think without Paul's Boutique, call me out, I don't know, you might not have had the first Deee-Lite album. I don't know. And I haven't really read anything about it, but I think we're all in that same pocket where I think there's a lot of people influencing everybody else, you know? I think it all goes hand in hand, because even the Deee-Lite album, my God, I don't know if you could reproduce that now or not, but it's absolutely brilliant, you know? People probably talk more about Paul's Boutique and the Beastie Boys as opposed to Deee-Lite. But I don't know. What are your thoughts real quick before we really dive in? I know we're going on a tangent, but we're trying to set this up because this whole era is very fascinating. It's like the wide open, it's like the Wild West. Think about it, John. A lot of creativity, a lot of, new stuff happening. So what's your thoughts?
Okay. I'm going to agree with you that it did influence a lot of stuff that came out later, but I don't think it had a big influence on Deee-Lite's World Click, because this album really isn't big on samples. I mean, I mentioned Bring Down the Birds. I want to make sure I say it right, but there's not too many other samples on here. This album is pretty organic.
There are a lot of samples though on it.
There are samples, but there's real saxophones on there. There is some real bass on there. There's real guitar on here. So I would think maybe a little bit. Like, I think this album still would have been successful. Now, Groove is in the Heart, I mean, that bass line is very memorable, but there's a lot of other hooks in that song too. Just some of those vocal hooks are on there. I mean, I can't sing because I can't go that high, but I mean, to me, I think of so many vocal hooks on there, and then Bootsy being on there, and then you had Q-Tip doing a spoken word rapping on there too. So this song was a tour de force. I mean, yes, the bass line was picked up from Herbie Hancock, but the rest of the song is a killer too. I think they introduced New York house music to the masses here. And along with that, they had this sense of style about them and fashion. They all dressed really different. They were trying to, and I think they changed things in the fashion industry as well, with their look. So I think, yes, Paul's Boutique, oh yes, we can do a show about that, and now it's influenced so much music.
Yeah, that's a whole other show.
Yeah, but I think the influence on this album is minimal. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty organic.
There are a lot of samples on here, because what I understood is that, but I think where the Beastie Boys is much more apparent. I think the Deee-Lite record, it's much more, they're on here, kids, but you might not recognize.
They're more subtle. Yeah.
And it just kind of blends in with the instrumentation and the song structures. I'm telling you, for these guys that just would play in clubs in New York City, they seem awfully advanced. Because I listened to this record and it's almost like it's on another level. But you would think this is just dance music. Yeah, but it's dance music that, what do I want to say? Oh,
the songs are great.
Yeah, the songs are great. The hooks.
On the first album, the hooks and the songs are there. I think that's what really makes this album stand out, and what still makes it a wonderful listen all these years later. It's not just the beat. The songs are there, and there's so many hooks in here.
Well, I'm just curious. Let me throw out this question to you. On Miss Kerr, we know that she wrote Well, I think pretty much she was writing everything at this point. All the melodies, all the lyrics, all the music, pretty much. I'm sure we had, Tawa would join in. There were some collaboration, but I think she mostly came up with it. How much do you think that her look and the band look had to do with their success?
I think she certainly did. Oh yeah, I think that had something to do with the success. Because yeah, absolutely. I mean, the songs were there too, but the fact that they looked a little different. There were a few other acts
I mean,
around
it's
that
very
time.
60s, very, I mean, think about it. She had that mid 60s kind of haircut. She's wearing those cat suits, the
Yeah,
high heels. It's like a combination of 60s and 70s to some degree. Let's say this. If anybody's a fan of Jellyfish, the
right.
band would fit right in on that first album cover to give you like some kind of, you know, grounding point to some degree.
Yes.
It's all in, or think about this, the band Red Cross
Okay.
fit right in. It's that era, but these were all like 1990. That this look was in at this point, but it was so fresh and new. And when I first noticed these guys, it was pretty much her look that I took notice. Of course, I was a young male, and of course I'm gonna pay attention. But yeah, I think it was it was where everything lined up. So is there anything on this first record that you find, well, the first record, there's hard to critique anything about it. Is there anything on there you want to mention that particularly changes your world or anything? Or
well, I'm not going to say necessarily changes my world, but the first song, the theme is like really funky and it goes right into good beat. As soon as you hear that, you hear Lady Miss Keir Kirby, her delivery on here, that just brings you right in. It's just a great song. There were 3 songs on this album, I believe, hit #1 on the dance charts.
Yeah.
And that brings you right in. That's a great song. It's funny, you can't read them from the album because the album, they're like listed all over the place. And plus we're older now, so it's hard to read them. So I had to make sure that I wrote them all down.
Got my glasses on, kids.
Yeah. Power of Love, great song. That was a big hit in the clubs too. Great chorus on that. Love that track. Smile On, I love the horn lines on it. They had Maceo Parker on here. I hope I'm saying his first name right. And he was in the JB Horns. He was in James Brown's band. And he played on a ton of records. Even at that time, around that time, he played on Freaky Styley from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He played on one of my favorite records that I've talked a lot about on a lot of these channels, Living Colors Time's Up.
Oh, yeah.
Played on that. And the JB Horns were also on 10,000 Maniacs, Our Time in Eden, on Candy Everybody Wants. What a song that was.
Oh, yeah, I've got that EP.
Nice.
I didn't realize that the JB Horns, I guess I'm going to have to pay attention.
I didn't know it was them either, but I mean, I love the horn lines in that song. I never knew it was the JB Horns till now.
Wow.
Yeah, until I looked it up.
But, see, kids, we're all about educating the audience. So
that's right.
Listen to John and I. We'll set you straight.
Absolutely. In my opinion, Groove is in the Heart, that's the most infectious song they ever did.
Oh, yeah.
There's other songs on here that could have been hits, but they weren't going to be, no matter how much they pumped them, they weren't going to be as memorable as Groove is in the Heart. The title track is fantastic. It's got a great chorus and great verse on that. When I love Power of Love, I love Smile On. I love the horn lines on that and the great piano line. Another thing I really like about this band, Grant, is they also have a little bit of a foot, for lack of a better term, with 60s R&B.
Oh my God, yes.
With the pianos on it, I mean, it's not synths, it's pianos.
Right.
You know, and the saxophones on here. They really have one step back there. And I think that I think brought something to their appeal. They took that sound and they made it modern. You know, and then they have great songs, great vocal hooks. What Is Love is a great song, and then there's a little nice rap in there from Miss, I'm gonna keep looking, Miss Keir Kirby on there.
I know, I keep having to go, I can't
keep looking at that. But Who Is That's a really catchy tune. It's got these cool keyboard flourishes that just come out of nowhere. Really love that. The ending song, the instrumental on it, which is oh gosh, I forgot to write that one down. I think it's that Burn the Bridge.
Build the Bridge.
Thank you. Build the Bridge. That's really cool. It's got these jungle sounds on it that work really well. I love the way the album is recorded.
Oh my God, I was going to mention that, John. The recording in fact, I'm going to throw out props to all three records.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Oh my God, the recording quality is phenomenal. I'm not exactly, let me look real quick. I'm not exactly sure who recorded it, but they need some kind of an award because it does sound great. And you would think, let's see, Mike Tweakin' Rogers, additional background vocal production, arrangement, engineer, mixing. Deee-Lite, producer, arranger, mixing, but it looks like Mike Tweakin' Rogers was the engineer. Well, whatever. Mike is brilliant because I don't know if he produced the other two records, but this record, to put it on the stereo and just crank it up.
Absolutely.
The CD sounds great, kids.
Don't
let us fool you. I don't know if this ever came out on vinyl, but all you need is a CD. The CD sounds great.
Yeah. But yeah, this album, everything on it's very good. I like ESP a lot. I think Power of Love could have been the second single, done really well. And the title track as well, I think could have done well if they pushed it more. And the dance charts, I think they have 3 number ones and maybe 4 top 10s. Another one at the top 10 here. But ESP is great too. I mean, yeah, this whole album kicks.
Yeah, Miko Parker plays saxophone. Fred Wesley, if you know who Fred is, we're talking James Brown.
Right. Yeah, Bootsy Collins on here, but not playing bass. He's playing guitar on a lot of these tracks. And he plays on some guitar on the next album too.
And he does background vocals.
He's featured prominently on Groove Is in the Heart. And I think another thing that really helped him, that video was hysterical. I mean, this is back when MTV was still pretty prominent. A good video was important then. That video was very memorable. There was so much going on. It was just, very colorful video and very cool. And of course, you have Q-Tip on there, and Tribe Called Quest was about to get pretty big at this point. So
great stuff. So, John, what would you rate? What would you give this album out of 10?
9.5.
Oh my goodness!
Just because it slips a little at the end, but so little. I mean, 9.5. Great record.
But what I'm saying in this genre, though, I know this was only rated what?
4.5 on All Music.
Yeah, I think it deserves more.
4.5 out of 5 would be a 9 out of 10.
I just read somewhere. Slate Magazine included this album on their Vital Pop 50 Essential Pop Albums list, and it came in, geez, what did it come in on?
Ever in the 1990s?
It was in 2003.
Okay, but when the Vital Pop albums ever released, or pop albums from a certain
day? It was included on the lease. They said it was a dance classic. It is, but I
wouldn't argue that.
Huh?
I wouldn't argue that at all.
I wouldn't argue that either. but I think it transcends more than just a dance tune. So let's say this. I'm going to give you this, John. I would say that this is probably one of the best albums of that era. And I would give it a 9.5, just the fact that it still stands up. Some of these records from this period probably don't stand up as much, but you've got the songwriting, you've got the album artwork, the way the band looks, the production, the songwriting. I could go on and on. It's darn near a perfect dance record. And I think it transcends more than just a dance record. So
I agree.
I'll give it a 9.5.
All right.
All right, let's look at Infinity Within. So the second studio album, so they took, I don't want to say they took a 2-year break, but they released it on 1992 on Elektra. The lyrical content on this record is a bit different. There you go. There again, show us the front album again.
Oh, yeah, sure.
It goes right hand in hand with what came before. It's kind of got that 1960s feel, maybe late 50s. It's all kind of, it looks like they went to the Goodwill and went shopping.
Yeah,
and found all the
it
cool
does.
clothes. But that's good. But the thing about this record, there's a lot more political leanings on this record with the lyrical content, where you've got World Click was just more happy, friendly, happy-go-lucky, let's dance, go to the club. This, they're trying to run with a message. Runaway was the lead single from the record. It was their fourth single to top the Billboard dance chart. So this record didn't perform quite as well as the previous record. 37 on the UK album chart. Billboard 200, it got to 67. Reviews, not quite as good. The sound quality, top notch. It's just like a continuation, but that lyrical content has changed. Not quite as happy-go-lucky and a lot more trying to push more political agendas down your throat. Maybe you're into that. Me, I'm not so much. All Music gave it 2.5 stars. Rolling Stone gave it 2.5. That pretty much runs down the gamut. Not quite the same reception as what came before with 4-star reviews. So John, what do you think about this? Maybe Robert Christgau, I'm going to say, who hates everything, and that's a running joke, gave it a positive 3-star honorable mention. So he dug it. Is it 5-star, 4-star material? I don't know. Let's throw it over to John and see what he thinks.
I don't believe it is. I think it starts out really hot, just like the first record does, with that great percussion intro, and then it goes into Runaway, which was the big hit on the dance charts here. Just a nice little hook on here, and there's not great vocal hooks on here. Here, though, the catchiest songs, they don't resonate quite as much as they do on World Click, although there is a lot to offer. Heartbeat Still, that's catchy. There is some more nods to R&B on here, on this album. That certainly has that. It's got the upbeat harmonies. I think I Won't Give Up should have been the single. If there was one song on here that I think I probably would have heard on top 40 regularly if they gave it a push. I love the horn lines on I Won't Give Up. I love the vocals on there. Excellent vocal performance. I love the horn lines and just great chorus. Fantastic. It should have been a hit single, in my opinion. This should have been the other big hit single for them. Not Groove Us in a Heart big, but still big. Vote, baby, vote.
You can only capture lightning in a bottle once.
That's true.
Some people can do it. The Beatles maybe could do it, but not everybody's on that level. But
another thing on this album, Miss Keir Kirby will go in this lower sensual voice. That's really sexy on here. It sounds so good on a lot of these tracks, and she would do this more on Dewdrops in the Garden as well. I think that added another dimension to their sound. I love Two Clouds Above Nine. It's got this whistle. It's got this whistling part on it. That's like the big hook. That's really infectious. I really love the synth bass on it. The first time I ever heard the saying "That's my jam" was from this song, because there's a part in the middle where she goes, "Yeah, that's my jam," and then they keep repeating it over and over. That's a really cool tune. Now, after this, I think the album is kind of hit and miss. I'm not big into, like, a lot of it's like straight up dance, no hooks, like Electric Shock. I do love, and long ass song title. Here's your political song. I had a dream I was falling through a hole in the ozone layer. That's cool. It's a cool tune. You got,
but you gotta watch out because you could fall through it at this point.
You could
in the planet's history. So they have a good message, John. They have a good message.
They absolutely do. And it is a very good song. I do like it. It kind of goes into vocal jazz for a little bit during the song, which is really nice change of pace before it goes back into the verse. Fuddy Fuddy Judge, it's okay. There's a little bit of rap in it, but it's all right. Thank You Every Day, I think, is really cool. It's very simple, but it's a good song like that. Pussycat Meow, that was a club hit. To me, it's just a straight up club song.
I mean, that's fine.
My opinion just comes and goes. I don't think it resonates like a lot of the other songs on this album. Rubber Lover, same thing. It's just a lot of these songs sound really good, and then there's some that just sound like they're not developed. It's like you just put in some good beats and they put it in as a song, in my opinion. Come On In, The Dreams Are Fine is catchy. Like that quite a bit. And again, you have Maceo Parker on here. You have Bootsy Collins on here. You have Bernie Worrell on here.
Bootsy's playing a lot of guitar on here.
Yes, he is.
More guitar than like on the previous record. He's playing a lot more guitar than bass, which is fine. Hey, anything Bootsy's on, I'm down for. But yeah, you've got Catfish Collins playing guitar on 14, and Fred Wesley's on here.
Yes,
we
he is.
still have that James Brown connection. So
that's right. Love Is Everything was the bonus track. It's listed as the bonus track. I'm guessing it came out on cassette and it wasn't listed on there. It's got to be there because
I don't know.
You didn't see much vinyl at this point. Most artists weren't putting out vinyl in 1992.
No, 91 was the cutoff. So
that was the cutoff. Okay, so that song I like because it plays more old school R&B. But I mean, the highs on here not quite as high on World Click, and then you got some stuff on here that's kind of filler, like undeveloped, But and here's another thing that jumps out at me on this album compared to World Click. It feels really long. They went from 48 minutes on the first album to an hour on the second. So when you're going through a lot of these songs in the second half of the album, you're like, oh, this is pretty long, like you don't even, that thought doesn't even occur to you.
Right.
World Click, because you're so in. Whereas here you're kind of like drifting a little bit, as you're listening to it. I think, but at that time, bands are like, oh, well, we could put 80 minutes on a CD. Let's put as much music on a CD as we
That's what people were doing, filling it out, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah. And just to compare, like with Beastie Boys, they made 60-minute CDs, but they were interesting all the way through, in my opinion. Check Your Head was from this year. And I thought that album it's like Paul's Boutique would be 1 and Check Your Head would be 1A. I mean, it's that close. But that was interesting all the way through. This is interesting some of the time. And there are some good songs, and I think some should have got more love than they did. Rating it. I'm going to say 6.5.
Yeah. Well, I think you had a lot of great points. Again, I like the sound of the record. I think the production's great. I think the recording same as the first record. I think the recording's great. I get tired of the lyrical content, and I feel like I'm being preached at a lot. Yeah, the Earth is, we're all doomed, blah blah blah. Earth is falling apart. Well, we're still here, and it's 2023. That gets a little old with me, but if you can look past that and listen to the music, listen to the lyric, well, I don't want to say lyrics, but the melodies, the production, the songwriting, it's still just as good, I think. But I think I just can't get past that lyrical content for me. So where I rated the previous album a 9.5 like you, I would probably give this I don't want to rate it too low. I always feel like I'm being so brutal. I guess I'd give it, I was going to give it I'll give it a 6. What'd you give it, a 6.5?
Yes.
I think we're in the same ballpark. I think I'd give it a 6. It compared to what came before.
That's the key.
I find if we could look at these records without comparing, it'd be great. It's hard to do that.
It is.
Comparing this to what came before, it just doesn't quite stand up. I think had the record been a little bit more uplifting, of course, then you'd be duplicating what you just did.
Yeah, you got to give them credit for not making World Click Part 2, that they did take some chances here.
Well, the chances they took kind of burned their bridges, I think.
Maybe.
I mean, they did have decent singles. Well, Thank You Every Day was the second single, and they pressed that on CD and 12-inch vinyl. But it didn't chart. See? Pussycat Meow, it charted, got to number 6 on the Billboard dance charts. But did it do anything on the regular Billboard charts? No.
I think they picked the wrong single.
Runaway.
I think I Won't Give Up would have been a hit.
Yeah, see, it seems like everything was a hit. Seems like everything was a hit on the Billboard dance chart.
Yeah, and you would expect more on the dance charts. I get that, but I'm surprised I Won't Give Up wasn't pushed more on your top 40 stations. I mean, I think it's got the hooks, it's got the nice vocals on there.
Yeah, it's a good single.
The great horror lines. Yeah, it's good stuff. But
it's a great single. I don't want to be too harsh on it because I do like it.
It was hard for me to give it a 6.5 because if you talked to me 6 months or a year ago before I asked you about this, I probably would have gave it a 7.5. But after I've listened to it a few more times, I'm like, this hasn't really aged as well. Although a lot of it I really like. Yeah.
There you go, kids. You go. I'm going to say this is the sophomore slump because I think with the next one, they kind of rebound, even though the band at that point, well, we can jump to that. So Dewdrops in the Garden was the third and final studio album, but the band had broken up. And so this record's a little bit different than what came before because this record, the band had broke up. Tawa Tay had left the band to work on a Japanese pop star record. So it was just Super DJ Dimitri and Lady Miss Kerr. They were joined by a producer, Ani Chef. So we're kind of switching it up a bit. But the band totally had broke up during the record. And so what they decided to do with all these lineup changes is to finish the record and then go out on tour and promote it. Even though they were going to call it a day, we're done. So this record came out, let's see. For one, it had 4 singles released off of it. It came out in 1994.
Yes.
Dewdrops in the Garden is the title. Deee-Lite is the producer. And you mentioned like the other album, how it went so long. This record's like 67 minutes.
Yeah, well, I'll get into that.
Yeah, well, I like this record because we're getting off of all that political stuff that came before. Now things are a lot more cheery, even though the band is in turmoil.
Mm-hmm.
I can't hear that on the record. It's a lot more optimistic than what came before. The reviews here were way better. All Music gave it 4 stars. Guardian gave it favorable review, Cashbox favorable. Slant Magazine 4 stars. Q Magazine in the UK only gave it 2, but I can look past that. But I think it's an improvement over the previous record. Still, you've got catchy writing, great production. You had 4 singles: Call Me, Bring Me Your Love, Party Happening People, and Picnic in the Summertime. I cannot find any info to tell me where those even charted or if they even did.
I don't believe they did.
You know anything about that?
I don't think they did, Grant. You'd think they had to be on the dance charts, though.
I don't know. But you know, the song What Is This Music ends at 29 seconds. And then there's 4 seconds of silence. And then you've got a spoken word hidden track at 4:29. I mean, these guys were creative. Now, some people could call that filler, but knowing how experimental and what's the word am I looking for? It's hard to describe. They were experimental. I don't want to say they're pushing the envelope, but they just kind of did what they wanted to do. The fact that they have a bonus track at 4:39 on this record, and it's just basically a spoken language thing, I think that's great. They did a lot of extra bonus tracks on here too that came out like on the 12-inch vinyl.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot, but you know, it's like their last hurrah, you know. I don't know. What do you think of this record compared to what came before?
All right. Well, you're gonna find this surprising.
Go
but
ahead.
I don't like this record as much as Infinity Within.
Really? I love it much better.
I think the recording is excellent. It's probably the best recorded album.
Mm-hmm.
But now they went straight rave music. I mean, the organic sounds were gone. The songs, again, I think they were a lot. For a while, I thought.
But we're in 94, though. You know, we're not in 1990 anymore.
I know that. And I know maybe by this point, you know, they're going to fall out of favor with the public. And the radio programmers aren't going to give them a chance. But I think it's just more, I think the songwriting, I think they started to run out of gas. And I think they left at the perfect time. Like, okay. I think after the 3rd album, you know, because there's still a lot here that's very good. I'm sorry. River of Freedom, I really like a lot. There's some great hooks and beats on that. Say Ah, which is the opener. That's great. And again, more of that sensual singing here from this lady here.
Yeah, she sounds great. I'll give her that.
No doubt about it. Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, so I think and Somebody, I think is a good track. But then it kind of, I don't know. Well, forget the Stay in Bed, Forget the Rest I like. Mm-hmm. But some of the other songs, I'm not really into Call Me at all. I don't like Music Selector is the Soul Reflector, even if it has an intro that they completely took from Steve Miller Band for Jungle Love.
It happens.
Yeah, it does. It does. But you know, it's definitely a peaks and valleys record. I like Bring Me Your Love because that's very old school funk, and Picnic in the Summertime has that old school late 60s feel to it. I like that. And that's my favorite song on the album right there. Some of the others, though, like Partly Happening to People, no, when I wrote my notes, I wrote nope next to that song. I just didn't get into that. When You Tell Me You Love Me's okay. Bittersweet Lovin' I like a lot. Dance Music Trance DMT is exactly what it says. It's just a dance music trance. Okay. Okay, hot take. I didn't like in the 90s when bands would have these hidden tracks at the end.
Okay.
Which is, what is this music? It's 1749, but nothing happens for like 4 minutes, and then something comes on, and nothing happens again for 4 minutes. Just end the damn record. I mean, I feel that way.
Damn it, just end it.
I mean, I was never a fan of that. Even some of my favorite artists did that. And you go through a bunch of silence, and then some song comes on, and sometimes it's some minute and a half throwaway. I'm not, and not saying that there isn't some decent stuff on What Is This Music, but I mean, it's mostly a waste in my opinion. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of bands that do it. I think it takes the record down, to be honest, because again, there is a lot on here that I like. I think This Lady Kears sounds great. The beats are there. There's some good hooks.
Right.
Not as not as much as the first two records, but again, Bring Me Your Love, Picnic in the Summertime, River of Freedom, Say Ah, good songs. And I'm gonna go 6.
I'm gonna rate it higher than that. Though I do appreciate your review.
Thank you.
But
I'm not
yeah,
generous there, but I 5.5 would be a little too brutal, because there are a lot of songs on here I like.
well,
So
I mean, after the
6.
second album, Keir and Dimitri thought that their sound was kind of losing it with the dance floor crowd. So that's why Dewdrops is a little bit different. They're trying to be more adventurous, open it up, and trying to well, I don't want to say reinvent themselves.
Okay.
But kind of yet come back to their basic core that they had on the first record, but yet develop on the second record. Maybe it doesn't work as well for you. I think it works well.
Okay.
I mean, think about it. We're doing dance music. What possibly can we do to change the world? I think Deee-Lite had their run. I think they did a great job. And I think Dewdrops in the Garden as a final tombstone epitaph, I think it's a good way to go out.
Okay.
Even though, Kerr and Dimitri, this was it. They decided, well, this isn't working anymore. They didn't actually get along very well at this point. And, being in a band is difficult, or being in a, whatever you want to call this. I'm not even sure if it is a band. They decided to go their own ways, but they decided, well, let's finish the record. This isn't working. Let's finish it, and we'll do the tour and call it a day, which is what they did. And you have to admit, for a lot of artists, that, to go that extra mile.
Yes.
That's awesome. But this record did sell more than the previous record.
Really?
Yeah. So, yeah, sold more copies. So it was much more of a success, even though you might not think that, because in the used bins, well, actually, John, I haven't really seen anything lately in the used bins as far as Deee-Lite. You used to see it. It's like it's all gone. It's weird.
Yeah. I haven't, no. And it's not like I go out of my way to look for them, because I have 3 albums, but, and I think they have a best of too. And I'm not really a big best of guy. So unless it's somebody I would just rather have all the hits by.
But
Deee-Lite I liked enough that I wanted all the albums.
the writing was on the wall for them.
Yes.
World Click in the US went to 20. Infinity Within went to 67.
Correct.
Dewdrops in the Garden, even though it sold more, which doesn't make sense, went
Just
to
more
127. The writing's on the wall. The bands like this only have a lifespan of so long.
That's what I was gonna say too. This kind of music, the bands usually have a short shelf life.
I mean, maybe for the casual listener, maybe see if I can bring it up. Maybe well, let's see. How many comps did, oh, goodness gracious, Grant. They've had various compilations through the years. They actually did in Japan, they did a Dewdrops in the remixed that came out in 95.
Okay.
The very best of Deee-Lite came out in 2001.
Okay.
And the Electra years came out in 2020. So, and then Groove is in the Heart came out digitally, as in the Electra years, both digitally. Last thing on CD was in 2001.
Okay.
They've had a lot of rehashing, trying to push that catalog.
Yeah.
Me personally, I would give this, oh my God, I gave the other album a six, right?
Yes.
I would have to give, well, I really do like this record. Is it on par with the debut? I'd say no, but I would be comfortable to give this record an 8.
Okay.
I don't know. I think they were in the studio. I think they probably thought, well, this is it. Let's just do it and make the best of it and make the best record we possibly could. I can't prove that, but to my ears, that's what it sounds like. You know, there have been other bands in the history of rock and roll that done the same thing. What was it? Spirit, Dr. Sardonicus, the last Spirit album. They were breaking up. They last hurrah on that record. So it's the same kind of thing, I think.
Right.
For most people, the casual listener, I think you probably could just get a best of and be happy. But I think you could look at these records and dabble in them and see what you think. The first album is a classic. I will give you that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But, you know, you look at the course of history and the course of rock and roll, and all those first albums are always great. For the most part, you know what they say, you had your whole life to write that first record. Once you get to the second one, you have 6 months.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think like I've said, like in the 70s, if you didn't have a good first record, the record labels will work with you for a few albums before and see what else you could do before they dropped you. And that became a good thing for a lot of greatest bands in our lifetimes, you know.
Right.
But you know, by this point, it wasn't that kind of environment out there in the music industry.
Right.
But you did have you had a lot of bands, regardless of genre. That first one was a knockout. You know,
God, yeah.
World Click is a knockout. No doubt about it.
Well, because I guess the general consensus would be, well, I still, you know, Infinity Within, I still will listen to it. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I'm kind of look at it at the point where what came before, you know, it's hard to keep things separate. I mean, let's say Infinity Within was the debut album. How would you have looked at it differently? And you had never heard the debut World Click? I'm just curious. How would you look at Infinity Within had it been the debut?
I would have liked it, but it wouldn't have blew me away. Yeah, I still would have liked the record, but again, the fact what came before it, but I don't think I would have ever gave it a 9.5. I probably would have gave it, you know, at one point I would have gave Infinity Within an 8, but I just don't think it's aged as well. I mean, and I never thought it was as good as World Click. World Click, at one point I would have said 10. I mean, but now
Mhm.
I'd say 9.5.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I'm
I'd say
with you.
it was a pretty good record, but not a great one.
I mean, I don't listen to this type of genre very often, but if I'm going to listen to anything, it's going to be these records.
Yeah, and that's how I mean, back in the first part of the 90s, mid 90s, I was always into a lot of stuff, but this was the
Mm-hmm.
time when I listened to this kind of music the most.
Mm-hmm.
And I still have those CDs, and I didn't get rid of them. I still kept those. Some of the earlier ones I got rid of over time, and then I'd be like, why the heck did I get rid of this and rebuy it? But
Oh, John, we've all been there.
oh yes.
We've all been down
Or if
that
you just
road.
need a few bucks back then,
Well, God, I can tell you back in the day when I was in college, I would do it
Mhm.
because you needed money.
Yeah.
And then you'd liquidate, you'd go through your collection and go, well, I probably could get rid of this. Well, I've bought all that stuff back at this point in my life.
Me too.
It's a
Yeah.
different world when you're young with no money and you're
Right,
trying to get
exactly.
stuff.
You're like washing dishes for a living or
Right.
whatever. I mean, which is what I
Exactly.
was doing. So for a little while anyway. But yeah, so back then you don't have much money. You're thinking, oh, how can I get $5 quick?
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, there you go, kids. I think the general consensus is definitely get the first album. I can still recommend the other two records. I would always start out with, I think, the debut album, World Click. And if you want to, check out the best of. I don't think that would be a bad way to go either.
of course not. Oh,
I mean, they had their lifespan. They did what they did. But man, in 1990, though, they were hot and heavy. They were a force to be reckoned with. I'll give you that in the dance community. Very fresh, great production, like we said, great songwriting, great look, great album. Everything was perfect. So if you like it, check it out. Won't
Absolutely.
it won't hurt you. So
They're more than just groove is in the heart.
right.
Just to let you know.
All right, John, before we wrap this up, you have anything more to add?
Oh no, I think we summed up Deee-Lite's music very well. I mean, like I said, I mean, Deee-Lite, they have a lot of good stuff to offer, and this first album is a killer. So,
Mm-hmm.
you want to take a trip back in the time, you can't go wrong. All these records are worth hearing, and
Mm-hmm.
the first album I think is a wonderful record. To
Yeah.
this day, it still sounds great to my ears.
Cool.
I'm glad we got to do a show on this.
Well, this is fun. Thanks for the topic because I like Deee-Lite, but it wasn't on my radar to like, hey, my audience would love a show on Deee-Lite.
Yeah.
But you know what? That's what my show's all about. My channel's all about talking about these bands that no one's talking about. And God knows no one's talking about Deee-Lite anymore. So if you like this stuff, just go out and check it out and see if you like it.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, please like, subscribe. You know the whole routine. You know what's going on here.
Absolutely.
John, I want to thank John, the music nut, for coming on. You can see
Thank you,
John
Brad.
on Contrarians, Peter Kerr's channel. John, the music nut's a busy man.
Yeah, I got like a steady gig on 4 or 5 channels right now. I'm keeping busy.
You're keeping busy.
I'm loving this. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's great.
And I love your channel, Grant, because you'll talk about a lot of stuff that, like you said, that a lot of people aren't talking about.
Yeah, because I don't care. I just want to talk music.
Absolutely.
And
I'm the same
Deee-Lite
way.
was like a breath of fresh air, John. And you
were
mentioned
back
that,
in
and I went,
1990.
crap, let's do that.
Yeah.
So
It
it's
just
well
popped
worth.
in my head, and I just sent it out to you. And then
I said, well, I've got all three. I've got all of that. Yeah.
if any of you watch me on my music corner with our wonderful friend John Clauser,
John
I
Clauser
actually told the story. I said it. I think I might have said it. The show that aired last week. I was like, John goes, "Well, what do you got coming up?" And I said, "We're talking about Deee-Lite." And
Yeah.
I just sending it out to Grant for shits and giggles. He's like, I love them. And I got all their albums. I'm like, you're the man, Grant.
I'm the man.
You
Grant's
are the
Rock
man.
Warehouse. It might be Grant's Dance Warehouse for this next episode.
There we go. Maybe you'll have early 90s dance party on Grant's Rock Warehouse on a Saturday one of
It
these
could
days.
be. Oh my
play-
God, that'd be great. 90s dance.
You could play Snap, The Power, and a bunch of stuff by Deee-Lite, and you could play Strike It Up by Black Box, and Gonna Make You Sweat by
John, you're
CNC.
giving me ideas.
Oh, that's why I'm here.
All right, cool.
I love to give ideas.
All right, kids. Well, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you like Deee-Lite. Please leave a comment. I love comments and I always respond. And I've noticed John will come on and respond too. So just
Sure.
leave a comment. We want to hear from you what you think of Deee-Lite. Where do you think Deee-Lite stands in today's music? I mean, are they forgotten? I probably think they are, but man, in 1990, they really
Probably
bringing it.
considered not a one-hit wonder, and which, yeah, I'm sorry. You want to say one album wonder? Okay, one hit. I mean, it's not just one hit, and like we both said, the other two albums are definitely worth investigating.
I wouldn't start there, but
right.
start with the debut. Then I would go to the third album, then work yourself back. John would disagree, but that's all right. At least start out with that first record.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, John, the Music Nut, I appreciate you coming on. Let's wrap
Thank
this
you.
one up. We will see you. And I don't know. I know John and I have something on the pipeline. God knows what else is coming up.
Definitely. I think we got something pretty soon.
Yeah, I just don't have my book in front of me. Like I never have my book. I have my book, but I don't have it in front of me. Losers, what I am.
I
All
got
right, man.
pieces of paper all over the office here.
It is what it is. All right, John, we'll see you.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Until
you.
the next time.